Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the West, we already talk about the 21st century as the Asian century, where once it was the British Empire and then the United States that stood atop the twin pillars of power and prosperity in the world. For the 21st century, that role will be played by China. But for many young women in rural Chinese areas, that miracle is illusory. It doesn't exist, because they would be never be given the education, never be given the chance to work, to share in that miracle. And on side proposition today, we think that's a problem, and it's one we stand to change. What am I going to do in my speech? Two things. Well, actually three things. Firstly, I will provide you with a definition, so I will explain what it is we mean by this policy, and then I will talk about two problems that we wish to solve. Firstly, the problem of girls being put up for adoption in rural Chinese areas, and secondly, and more importantly, the problem of parents choosing not to educate their daughters and only their sons, and why we solve that problem, why that's good. I should say that we have two goals on side proposition. Firstly, to advance the cause of gender equality, and secondly, to strengthen China and strengthen Chinese growth in the coming years. And don't let side opposition get away with just repeating those arguments back to you in a silly voice like that's rebuttal, because that doesn't count as defeating our arguments. We think these arguments are important, and we're going to stand by them. So, firstly, let's talk about adoption. Because having a child is always a cost, it's always expensive. You have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to educate them. And that really starts to stack up, particularly when they're very young, before they can work, and before they can give money back to their parents. Now, obviously, since the end of the so-called one-child or two-child policy, it is less of a problem because there's no limit on the number of children parents can have. But we say it is still a problem that where parents perceive that it's very expensive to have a child, they're sometimes only willing to bear that cost if they believe they will reap the financial rewards from doing so. What that means is that often, when families have daughters, they choose to put them up for adoption rather than raising them. That is obviously a massive problem, I'll take you in 1 second, sir, for gender equality, and also it means that there are hundreds or thousands of girls languishing in orphanages, and we say that it's important to make the incentives to have sons and daughters equal so that that problem is solved. Go ahead, sir.
The problem is that the woman ideology has not been changed. Even if we give the money to them, they will still use the money to cultivate their boys.
So, I agree that there is a problem of ideology here, right? I agree that many people wrongly perceive that female children will be less capable of doing valuable work than their male children. The point is that our policy overcomes that because money is a really powerful incentive. Money, ultimately, we say, will override those problems of ideology and perception, because when people are like, oh look, I get all of these yuan for overcoming my prejudices about women, we think they are much more likely to overcome their prejudices. No thank you, Monica. And that really deals with a lot of what I wanted to say, in fact, about education, so turning to that now. It is obviously very expensive to educate a child, particularly after the age of 15, when compulsory education in China ends. Now, why is it that parents typically choose to educate their sons over their daughters? So if they have two children, they'll pay for the son to carry on going to school and send the daughter out to work to help pay for their son's education. Well, in large part, we say, it's not just an ideological point, it's also a financial point. They wrongly think that their sons, if they are given education, will be better able to move to cities, to join the workforce, and to send money back to them. But we overcome that prejudice. We create a strong financial incentive to educate both of your children, or all of your children, and give girls an equal opportunity to go to school and then go on to university and to develop the skills that will be needed in a modern economy. So, We say this policy is good for gender equality because it ensures that boys and girls have equal access to education and to chances in life. And it's also good for China because it unleashes the potential of a whole generation of women who would otherwise be denied education and gets their voices heard. We're very proud to propose.
I thank the gentleman for those remarks, and now it's my privilege to call upon John, the Leader of the Opposition, to address the House about this motion.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very noble and well-meaning policy that the government stands up and presents to you. However, we think that overall, the benefits that they describe are not going to be accessible simply by having this type of policy. They assume on the government side that it's simply a matter of financial considerations which will solve all of the problems in rural communities with regards to the ideology of how they treat their daughters and how they view their daughters. We think this is not only misguided, but potentially a very dangerous idea because it assumes that there's no ideological problems in the first place with regards to the ways in which rural communities and even the populace generally views women and the role of women in society. What I'm going to do for you today, in this speech, is explain to you why their case does not solve the problems of adoption in rural communities and does not solve the problem of educating women, generally speaking. But also I'm going to explain to you why the government shouldn't be subsidizing people to have children of either gender because it is a misguided policy and does not actually do anything to lessen the plight of women in the first place. But let's examine this again, because the case they bring to you is one in which the presumption is financial considerations are enough to change the ideas of the ways in which rural parents will treat their daughters. We think this is misguided for many reasons, but specifically because we think it's likely they will simply use the money or the financial considerations that the daughter is now brought to them, this wealth they have brought upon their family, to just either better educate the brother or the son in the first place, or use it to better their lives as well. Partially this is because we think it's true that the ideology of the place of women in Chinese society in the first place is one in which educated women are not necessarily as valued as a better educated brother or as a better educated man, which means that they are still likely to get the same returns or the same benefit from having the daughter not necessarily be educated. We don't think they solved for this problem, and they didn't do nearly enough to tell you why that's going to be the most likely outcome. Therefore, there are no benefits on their side. They don't gain that benefit. It's not sufficient to tell you that one or two or maybe a couple women in rural provinces will be better off. Therefore, we ought to incentivize them. They didn't do that work for you. We're going to explain to you why that idea generally is bad now. Later on, my partner is going to come up here and explain to you very eloquently why it's the case that backlash will exist and why that's particularly problematic. So, why the government should not subsidize people to have children really of either gender or be in that, that role in the first place. The needs of rural communities are not the same as the needs of urban communities. It's not necessarily the case that you need to have a woman or a girl on a farm, farming on a day-to-day basis. In many ways, it is an economic lag, but it continues to be the same economic lag that you would have in either situation. Their financial considerations wouldn't make up for that lag and wouldn't change that, that actual dynamic. But partially this is because financially subsidizing suggests that this is both a desirable and necessary policy, when in rural communities there's a very oppressive ideology that permeates that society in the first place, talking about how girls and women generally are treated and viewed. You don't change that ideology simply because you give them X amount of money in any given amount of time in order to change that. Go ahead.
Right, we're nearly at the end of your speech, and the best you've been able to say is that some of this money will be wasted. Can you tell us why you think this policy is so actively dangerous, given that you've not yet shown that it won't educate at least quite a lot of women?
So, number one, we have in fact showed you that it won't educate quite a lot of women. They're assuming, again, that this is only going to be useful for some people and therefore it's good. They have not explained to you why even in the situation where it only educates a few, it's still a good policy. But additionally, I've explained to you why by just simply throwing money at the problem, or by explaining that, your financial considerations will be useful and enough that it says that the ideology underneath doesn't exist, that you still don't change the views of the people, and therefore, if you don't change those views, you don't actually get any benefit in the long run, because in this situation where there's a few who do get educated, it's just those parents who are putting up with the idea that it's just those parents who are putting up with the idea that they now have a girl that they have a girl as a daughter, and that's problematic, but they think it's okay because they'll get some money from the government. We don't think that's enough. We think you still subject them to a very oppressive ideology that'll tell them that they're not worthwhile to exist, that the government will just give them money, and that there's quite a bit of weight put on them to actually succeed in the way that they want them to succeed, which will cause quite a few problems for them in the short term and in the long run. So overall, we think that we have provided to you a reason why this policy is not sufficient and also is dangerous because it will legitimize the ideology that girls are not as good. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman for those remarks. Now I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, Grace New, to address the House.
Ladies and gentlemen, hearing from the argument came from the opposition side. It's mainly that they think our policy is misguided. They think it's not sufficient and it is dangerous. But firstly, we point out saying that they don't provided us a policy saying that what they're going to do to solve the problem we are facing right now. They don't come up with very effective way of solving the problem as the very first place. They're actually using the most negative way of solving the problem, which means that they will do nothing in terms of the problem we are facing nowadays, in terms of the girls in the rural areas who have not been cultivated and who have not get enough education. And in terms of the reasons they come out saying like they think that the financial consideration wouldn't solve the problem. But we think that since it is a large amount of money, which like the government will subsidize them and subsidize the parents to raise their children, especially girls, like we think that it can help them overcome the ideology perception. We think it's really important because we see like in the rural areas, some parents do not have enough money to cultivate their children, to cultivate their girls, and do not have money to support their girls to have education. And when some other families, like their girls have been successful, like they have enough education and they become successful, become the role model of the society, and then these parents will think about how to promote their own family, and they will follow them, but they have not enough money. This is the reason, like our government is trying to solve, and we think that this could help them overcome the ideology perception. So, like, I will talking more about the why money is really an incentive and could be effective, and what kind of effects it will bring to the society and also to Chinese development. First, we think that this policy is actually a bottom-up policy which could promote the whole society to change. We think that we firstly give some money to the rural areas to let their parents think twice. Before they're making the decision of not cultivating their girls. But basically, the truth and the status quo is like in the rural areas, the parents were more likely to support their boys because they can become the laborers outside their family, outside the rural areas. They think cultivating boys is more effective and could bring them more financial benefits. But now we actually subsidize those families, give the parents money. And we say that this money is specifically for you to cultivate your girl, and you see like the girls in the other places could also become successful, could also become the role model of the society, that they can also promote their own family. So therefore, the parents will begin to realize the importance of cultivating their girls, and they help them to make them to change. Because nowadays we see like in the society the girls in the rural family, they have no money, they have no education, they have no opportunity and chance to actually change the destiny. So the only thing they can do is without education, they can only plant in their family, around their families, and have no opportunity to actually get out of the rural areas. Okay, what's your point?
Do you think you changed the perception of women being inferior in rural China by saying you're so inferior that we have to pay your own parents to raise you?
But actually we see the problem nowadays that they have no money, so their parents will not realize this problem. They didn't actually have the incentive and motivation to change. And we see like, it is not saying that the girls in the rural areas have no, it is not saying that the girls will not have good destiny, will not bring benefit. It's only their parents who haven't realized this kind of problem. They have no motivation to change. Actually, nowadays we provide them this kind of motivation to help them realize that girls can also be successful. Girls can also be the role model of society that other people will follow. So parents will begin to realize step by step, saying that their paying will actually finally get feedback. So this is the reason basically we think this is a bottom-up policy, and we can like change their parents' perceptions. Old perception, traditional perceptions on the girls have no capability to survive and no capability to promote their own family. And according to what the upper house of this of the government has mentioned, is like we think that the financial support and subsidy provided for the rural parents is effective of helping them overcome the ideology perception, to help them to change and think twice before they make the decision of not cultivating their girls. So our council animation, we're very proud to propose.
Thanks, lady, for those remarks. Now I call upon the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Eric, to continue the argumentation for his side of the bench. Here, here.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we think the whole opening government made several gigantic mistakes. First is they have a really wrong perception of the state's core problem. The only thing is a financial issue, that their rural family don't have enough money to raise a daughter. But ladies and gentlemen, the real problem, as my partner clearly told you in this debate, is the woman ideology should be revolutionized, ladies and gentlemen. Even if we give them so much money, they still will think only the man is the core of the family. Only the boy can last our family. Because if their ideology cannot be changed, the financial incentives have no effect. Why? Because in some rural family, we found even some really poor parents, when we have one girl, they will choose to have another girl, they will choose to have another girl until they got a boy. So the really problem is not they don't have the money, it's they still need a boy to last their family. That's the ideology that we want to change. The second is the principle they propose into this debate. They want to achieve the fake equality by proposing another inequality policy. And my partner also clearly told you, by doing so, you actually will generalize the idea that a woman is really inferior in our society. That is why we're going to subsidize it. The third problem is the dangerous effect that I will clearly told you in my speech. The stance of the opposition side is really simple. We think the ideology of these rural parents, have some problem that we have to change them using education and to tell them what is really happening in our society. The woman can also succeed in a lot of fields. After we really recognize the woman's success in the society, can they really recognize the woman in the rural community, right? So how we're gonna achieve this? How we're gonna achieve this process? We're gonna act. So, for example, in the urban place, in the urban place of our China. We don't give any money to our parents. But in urban place, our parents already accept the boys or girls. They will equally love their children. Why? Because these women, they get education. Their mother know that even if I'm a woman, I can also succeed. The second is that the woman in the urban place already recognize women can succeed in a lot of areas like engineering, like scientists. Because they know the woman can succeed in this area, their ideology have already changed. So it's not a matter of the financial issue. It's a matter of the ideology issue. No, thank you. But no, thank you. In my speech, I will tell you what harm are going to caused by this policy. No benefits, but only harm. The first harm is the backlash of the society. Ladies and gentlemen, where's the money come from? We have to ask this question many times. The money that the government is trying to subsidize our children is from the taxpayer, right? After people pay the taxation to our government, we expect the government can use the public money to do good for the whole society instead of only do good for the parents of their girls. After we pay so much money to the government, right? We want the whole government can better our educational system, can better our health care system, can better our medical care system, and when some disasters happen, we urgently need the funding to help with that problem. Instead of just give the money to the girls family, right? And also, we think by doing so, no thank you. We think by doing so, the girls will be really big pressure. Why? If we give the money, too much money on them, we expect too much from them. Because we want the goal is that if we give the money to this girl, we want them can be success. And only the rural girl success can really change the perception of the girl in the rural place. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we give so much money for them, put so much pressure on them. Because our whole society right now have a really high expectation on them, give too much pressure on them. So if in the future, they will not succeed after this subsidy, the woman will further discriminated by the society. That is the bad consequence which should never happen. So I didn't accept any POI. You should not do that, right? The second problem is that the harm is the effect to the rich and poor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a financial policy that means that it's obviously only the poor person will be affected by this policy. The rich rural family, even if you get the money from the government, they will not care about it because themselves also have enough money to raise the daughter. But right now the problem is that they don't want to educate the woman. So right now only the poor woman, only the poor rural women parents will be affected by this policy. So what is the problem, ladies and gentlemen? The government manipulates the poor situation of these parents to try to objectivize the poor woman, to treat them as a girl baby machine in this society. We think the government are doing really evil stuff in this situation. So what is the opening opposition have told you today? We tell you that it's an ideology problem that we have to change using education. We tell you that the policy will cause a lot of harm from the backlash of the society and cause the rich and poor gap in the rural places. So we are very proud to oppose.
Now we move into the second half of the debate, and I welcome the Member of Government, Jessica, to the floor.
While First Opposition is quite happy to continue along in a system where women in rural areas are devalued in China and allowed to stay in the home for their entire lives without the opportunity to see that there might be another life for them out there, side government isn't. And we're proud to stand with First Government in the belief that if we give money to subsidize female children in rural China, we do believe that they'll be able to have the opportunity to gain an education, to gain a choice about the life that they'd like to pursue. With that, I'm going to get into a little bit of reputation, and then I'm going to move to my own 2 points. My points of argumentation will be that we're not simply advocating for more daughters in rural China, but we're arguing that we should have more independent young women. Secondly, I'm going to talk about how this not only improves the daughters' self-perception of themselves, but also improves the perception that their communities have of them. And that'll answer some of the questions that I think we heard posed by First Opposition today. Quick refutation before I go. Why is this the government's job? It's the government's job because right now we see a pernicious cycle where when women are born in rural China, it's not as though they have the opportunity to bring themselves into a situation where they're going to see themselves doing anything differently. Women in China who are born then someday grow up to raise daughters in rural China. And what is their expectation of those daughters? The same thing that they had for themselves. That they belong in the home, that their job is to be subservient to their families and to their husbands. If this cycle continues, we don't see any way that that's going to alter, because you're going to be simply going around in this vicious cycle and continuing. We think that it's the government's job to prioritize equality of citizens and equal opportunity for those who are voiceless. So since these girls are stuck in this cycle and effectively have no ability to change that, yes, we do think it's the government's job. Secondly, they said, well, what if only a few women achieve the type of education that Ben was talking about in his opening speech? We think that that's still good enough. And why? We think that that's still good enough to justify affecting this policy because if only a few women are successful, go through primary education, secondary education, maybe achieve a scholarship and get to go to one of those urban areas that we heard the previous speaker talking about, we think that those few women with their strong value of family are still going to go home. And what happens when they go home? All the other girls in that town see them. And they see that that's an opportunity that they can also have. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this speech. No, thank you, John. Finally, just the last thing I want to say is that I'll address the concerns that we heard about perception at the end of my speech today. First, let me just run a little bit with what we heard from Ben, but what he didn't quite get to finish. Because he said that we're going to have more independent young women, but he didn't quite explain to you how. And I think that he did a very nice job explaining to you that money is valuable in these communities. And so when you allocate money specifically for daughters, you're not just saying have a daughter, you're saying raise a daughter. Raise a daughter means you're going to pack her school lunch every day and send her off to class. You're going to allow her to go on to a secondary education after she's 15. And once she's there, she's not just going to be indulging in, oh, well, this is how you add and subtract. She's going to be seeing that there are scholarship opportunities, that she could go to the city. And because of that, we think that that money will be spent well. And we think that you'll be raising somebody who has the ability to make choices about whether or not they do want to go home and stay and become a homemaker, which we think is a valid choice, or can go on and pursue further education. Once you have that education for women, we see that that helps to produce things like women who start their own businesses, women who are able to bring in financial wages to their families and offer that for their children, which brings down child mortality because you're able to take better care of your health and have more time to take care of things like that. Finally, we think that this pursues gender equality because you, from having that education, believe that you have a place in the workplace, believe that you have value, believe that you should earn a wage and that you can contribute it back to your family. Very quickly, I'll take you, which one? Come on, gentlemen.
It will cause a moral dilemma. The parents, they raise their children. It's not because I love my children. It's because the government gives my money. That's the problem we don't want to see.
Okay, I think it's okay that the government gives money to women over men in rural areas because that's of address. It's the women who are at a disequal proportion. And we think that it's they who are at a disadvantage. And therefore, since it's the government's job to correct for that, we're okay with it. Finally, most importantly, why do we think that daughters are going to have their self-perception improved? Because within the family, from birth, these girls will have economic power in their family. They will know, even if their parents don't like it, even if the parents are not enthusiastic about the fact that they have to have a daughter in order to get this stipend, that girl will know, money is coming into my family because of me. And that incurs pride. That incurs the fact that I am valuable, even if my parents don't see it as something that is, traditional. But then we think what happens more importantly is outside of the family. We think that the fact that when girls are introduced to educational facilities, they're not just within their homes receiving the pressures of traditional family values. We think that they're having an opportunity to apply to scholarships. They're interacting with teachers and peers who may not share their traditional family values. We think that those interactions allow them to interact with people who have been to urban areas, who might see them differently. And we think that when that girl gets to look into the mirror of somebody else's face and see that she holds value there, that's when she'll begin to internalize that message. And that internalization is what's going to lead to all the benefits that we've told you about on government today. We're proud to propose. We hope you will be as well. Thank you.
Thank you, lady, for those remarks. Now I call upon Angelo to speak on behalf of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, both sides agree that this is not only a financial problem, but also a cultural problem. But the problem is that which side will tackle the problem at root, and which side will, at the root, to eradicate the gender discrimination. And we believe that it's definitely closing opposition. And coming from our side, in my extension part, I will stand in the women's angle and tell you why their policy is actually to dehumanize women and make them an economic object and make them as a source of income, which will cause more harm in the family and influence the relationship between the parents and the children. But moreover, we will provide you with another model by illustrating how actually organic change can happen when the technology will move forward and the human resources difference will be shortened, and thus there's no gender discrimination in rural family anymore. So before that, several quick responses to the government side. So the first point, the only problem pointed out by the government is that they think that there is a shortage of education. But if you think the only problem is education, we think actually their policies overlap in the status quo. Because the Chinese government has already provided free education and compulsory education to those children. Actually the reason is not they don't have money to go to school, but the family is not willing to send their children to school. So we think actually this is overlapping the status quo. But moreover, you think that the problem is education, that the government just mandates the education for a longer time, so that more girls can get access to education. We think actually those policies can work. It's not necessary to pass this policy because this policy actually cause more harm to the women and dehumanize women as economic object, as I will elaborate to you in my extension part. But second, where we think that actually the point out by the by the member of government, when she talk about how actually in the rural family the women actually don't have way out because the only way to help them is to provide them with money. But we think it's not true because we think that actually the organic change can happen in this process. As I've told you in my extension part, how actually technology move forward and the boys and girls, the physical difference will be shortened. Thus the discrimination will be solved in this model. So the first extension, why we think actually their policy is dehumanizing women as an economic object, is they think that their policy, the basic assumption is that women are inherently inferior than boys. So that is the reason why they have to give money to pay the family and make the family to raise daughters. But moreover, we think that actually they're promoting gender equality by creating another gender discrimination. Because for those women, under their policy, they will be treated as the goods and commodity and economic object of the family. Actually, they will not gain the moral respect as they expected. So we think it's not right for women. It's even worse for women to improve their social status in this process. But moreover, how this actually will harm the relationship between the parents and the children is because we think the parents will change their calculation simply because they want to treat their daughters as a source of income and treat their daughter as an economic object. We think actually it hurts the relationship between the parents and the daughters. They will not trust their parents and even feel very bad about the parenthood. We think this is exactly the other problem their policy will institute. But second of all, why we think actually the organic change can happen, there is no necessity to pass this policy, is because we think the very reason that why the parents are so partial to boys is because the basic assumption is they think the boys can be physically much stronger than women and do much more labor in rural area. But we think if you look at in the developed countries like USA and UK and other European countries, there's no gender discrimination. It's because those countries there's highly developed in technology. So actually the human resources and the physical difference is actually shortened by those technology and those high technology devices. So actually when the family trying to choose someone to work as a labor, there is no such dilemma and confusion about whether to choose boys or girls. So we think actually, especially for China, when the technology move forward, actually the physical differences can be shortened and actually the gender discrimination can be solved by our model. So basically from the closing opposition, we systematically rebut their point from a new angle to tell you actually this is the overlapping the status quo. There's no necessity to pass this motion. But moreover, we think standing from the women's angle, their policies dehumanize women and make them and treat them as inherently inferior than boys, which will actually hurt more to women to improve their social status. But moreover, we think organic change is happening in other countries. So China is actually can also take the same step. So for all the reasons, we are very proud to oppose.
Thank you, gentlemen, for those remarks. Now I call upon Ted to conclude the argumentation for the government side of the bench. Here, here.
Mr. Speaker, before my constructive speech of a summary of the whole debate, first rebuttals to the previous speaker. What their extensions are kind of like a message to me, and there have three extensions. First of all, they say this kind of people, rural people, don't want their daughters to go to the application and go to school. Because why? Because they simply don't believe their daughters can make money, can make a
fortune after they go into the schools, right? So in these cases, why they have this kind of ideology? It's simply because they don't see a successful female example in the rural area which are making great fortune than the sons. So they stick to this kind of ideology, and this becomes a vicious cycle that continues and strengthens day by day. So actually what we are proposing is actually seeking to the root why this ideology exists and happens and even strengthens, and we want to deal with the ideology by the monetary methods. So what we see is that they don't, this kind of rural girls in the rural families, they don't see hope, they don't see the opportunities because they lack of education. They don't know what the outside world is, and they don't know how a successful woman they can be. So simply, we are giving them the opportunity to give them the education and make them realize themselves that I should have a full self-perception of myself. And that is a start point of every woman from changing. Secondly, they say organic change, not this time, sorry. They say organic change is happening, but they never provide us any solid example how the organic change is happening. What we see is that this kind of imbalance of the social stereotype still strengthening in the rural families. These people still giving more effort and giving more fortune on the development of the sons rather than the girls. And the girls are controlled very tightly by the family and being a housewife in the family without being ignored and without being recognized by the whole society. So we see that this kind of organic change is not happening. And they say we are treating women as a commodity, but look at the status quo now. It is already a commodity, and they are treating them as a machine, and they never stand out for the girls and to make a difference for the girls. Thirdly, they talk about technical problem. We never know why they are talking about technical problems of changing the physical health. We see that actually this kind of thing is irrelevant to the problem that we are debating now, and we need to focus more on the equality and how to achieve the equality between the genders. So before I move on.
Could you be the first on your side of the bench to explain why parents are actually going to spend this money on their daughters that they already think are inferior to the brothers in the elderly?
Yes, thank you for your question. First of all, on the first level, on the inferior part, my partner has elaborated to you that why government has the very responsibility to do so. Even if this policy cannot be 100% successfully implemented, we see that actually governments are fulfilling the job of doing so because it is government's responsibility to break the vicious circle and break the make a change for the girls in the family. Second of all, even if not all the parents want to invest all the money on the girls, we still see it as a good thing. Why? Because first of all, there are a large amount of families in the rural families, there's a lack of money. And the lack of money and lack of the economic power is the only reason for them not sending the girls to school. And for second level, even if this kind of family have this kind of have more money and want to invest more money on the sons, we are at least sending a signal to the whole society that you need to attach more importance on the girls because this is what the society needs to function. And we need to pay more attention to the value of girls and make them self-realize that I should make more progress and I should be a successful woman. And come to this debate, I have elaborated to you first that my partner has told you that why the government's responsibility to do so, because government is the only effective power to break this vicious cycle. And secondly, why we talk about why money can change the ideology. First of all, my partner had elaborated to you that money is a very essential power in the rural families, and this it kind of equals to the value of person in the rural areas. So by the financial subsidy, we're actually giving them more value on the girls and giving more attention of the society to the girls to see that you need to value everyone in the family, no matter it's daughter or son. On the second level, why money would help them? Because by giving them money, we are actually ensuring them the ability of getting education for the girls, so they could get to the education. And when they got to the school and learn the things and learn to seek out for the outside world, they would form this kind of self-perception and a will inside themselves that I should be independent. And that is the ultimate goal outside wants to approach. And on the other side, what they are talking about is mainly reporting on our case and never providing how they are changing the worsening situation of the status quo. Thank you.
thank gentlemen for those remarks. Now I call upon Monica to close the debate for her side of the bench and for all of us. Hear, hear.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to point out that on side's second proposition, that they seem to believe we live in a world where women who come from communities which oppress them, who view them as objects and who view them as commodities, and who finally make it out on their big scholarship to the big city, are going to say, hey, you know what would be fun? To return to that community where I was an object, where people treated me poorly, and instead of staying in the big city. I think if I were a woman who came from rural China and was treated quite poorly and treated as an economic object, I'd be less likely to return there and instead stay in a place where I had more freedoms and more opportunities. So if you believe their economic analysis, that you're necessarily going to get all these excellent examples returning to rural China and teaching all these women who just want to stay at home and cook and clean for their families what real success is, I think that that's faulty logic. So what I want to do in my speech today is summarize the debate and ask two questions. Is this an economic problem? And two, what are the societal effects? So firstly, if we accept the assertion from side government that this is in fact an economic problem primarily, where the preference for boys in rural China comes from the fact that they can earn more and return more income and more capital to their families, then we say that there are alternatives to solving that economic problem, and they challenged us to provide them, which we don't have to, but we did because we're like that. We said, first of all, one of the better ways to do this would be to invest in development instead. So what my partner brought to the table today is this idea that when you invest in narrowing the technological advantage and physical advantage that men have over women in terms of things like agriculture or primary production in rural areas, you tend to see increases in gender equality as women can enter the workforce more and as women can compete with men on economic bases better. You see this all throughout the Western world. That's how the Western world developed in many other countries. We say that when you close this technological gap and invest in things like infrastructure and invest in things like schooling, you're necessarily, if you believe this is going to be an economic problem primarily, going to get rid of the problem of people believing that men will just return more to their families instead. Moreover, they said that we want women to get an education. We say that you can do that by extending the period of mandatory education, but also we would question whether this is an economic interest, but moreover a societal interest where it's not that the parents can't afford to send their daughters to school, but rather that they feel that their daughters simply aren't worth the investment in sending them to school. We think that the government can step in with alternative programs like mandatory education. But we would also say that it's not just an economic problem. So money isn't magic. The preference for boys in rural Chinese cultures isn't necessarily just coming from the fact that they can work harder on the farm, but rather there's an expectation, I believe, that they're going to continue on the family name and continue on the family traditions, whereas the women won't. So it's not just an economic problem, and giving money to people with these beliefs won't actually, and I'll take you in a moment, Jess, won't actually solve that bias. Moreover, and we've asked this question time and time again, how are these families going to be accountable for the money that we're giving them? So they provided us no mechanism for that accountability. Instead, from the previous speaker, we get, well, if maybe a few women benefit, but millions of men are also benefiting from these subsidies, we think it's totally worthwhile. We think you could actually be re-entrenching gender inequality by sending these subsidies with no accountability to these families who may or may not believe that their daughter deserves an education, who may or may not believe that they can't afford it. Go ahead, Tess.
That's the point where you're saying this is so societally entrenched. I just don't buy your organic argument where they're automatically going to say, oh, now women can go into agriculture.
That's what I'm saying. If we buy your analysis that it is an economic problem primarily, then we ought to invest in development, which gives people the opportunity to go and narrow that gap for themselves. If we buy our analysis that this is not just an economic problem, then throwing money at the problem may exacerbate the problem by having these families spend their money on boys. Or, moreover, and as we brought to the table, it commodifies these women and sends the message that you're not worth raising unless someone is paid to do it. So, what are the societal effects? As Angelo brought to the table, it commodifies women. It says to women that you're only worth raising so long as you provide an economic basis for the success of the family. As we pointed out, there's no benefit to accountability to this plan, so who's going to be keeping track of how this money is spent? We've also pointed out that this will likely erode familial bonds. Side proposition seems to believe that you're going to feel really great because you're really contributing to the family. But what about the daughter who feels really bad because her parents only had her so that she'd be a source of income? What about the relationship between parents and daughter when she feels that she's only a source of income for her parents, that her parents never actually wanted her and wouldn't bring her into the world? What are we trying to accomplish in this debate? We're trying to advance gender equality and we're trying to advance China's interests. We believe that the proposition's plan defeats both of these interests. For all these reasons, we oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks. I thank all the debaters for their speeches and invite them to cross the aisle and congratulate each other because we're all winners with debate. Hear, hear. We'll pose for a photo. Photo. You want me to photo? Why don't we do it right here at the podium? Then around the podium so we can get that big hand. Here we go.
Everyone pile on one side.
Pile on.
Yeah, cuddle in.
Okay, there we go. Excellent. Okay, let's have a special round of applause for the performance by our Chinese debaters today. Great job. The Japanese have won the English Foreign Language World Championship. The Bangladeshis have won the English as a Foreign Language World Championship. I predict the Chinese will win that as well very, very soon. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, I'm not going to provide an in-depth, this is the mistake that Monica made, and etc. But I knew she'd love that. And I'm not taking your point, Monica, no thank you. But for those of you who are very new to this, I just want to describe a couple of things that happened that I think are very important. I would say that we didn't see as much development as we might have if we had had 7-minute speeches. Then it might have been some more development, but that's fine because we're going to go to lunch. So that having been said, I think that the first government team is under a special obligation to set up a good debate. If they don't set up a good, if a good debate doesn't happen, and I'm the judge, I quite often blame them. Because they want to bring the big issues forward, they want to make it clear. You don't want to, as first government, run away from the issues. Now this is a particular American trait, to like, well, let's design our advocacy so none of the opposition's arguments apply. That's not the way you do it. You know, you're like sort of an argumentative George Bush. Bring it on. Right? You're saying to the opposition team, come on, these are big issues, make some arguments. And I think they did that very well. And you need to define what you mean, what it is you're talking about, why it would be a good idea right out of the gate. Many of the other speeches have a balance between refuting what has already been said by the other side and making a new argument. So most of the speeches in the debate are part of the time to refute what has been said, to attack their arguments, and then the other half of the time is to present your own new arguments for your side of the motion. And I think that's very important, because if you don't attack the ideas of your opponent, then it is not really a debate. It's dueling oratories, where you have opposite conclusions, but you don't really clash What we're looking for in a good debate is direct clash on the important issues. And in that refutation process, you're not just refuting the weak arguments they made. In fact, you generally don't need to do that. Your intelligent judge will know what their weak arguments were, and you don't need to point that out. You need to refute their best argument. You as a debater would say, what's the most dangerous thing that they said that can hurt us? Now, how am I going to defeat that? Right? This is the secret to refutation. And at the workshop, we'll be teaching you the basic process of refutation and the structure of simple refutation, because you want the judge to know what is it that you're answering, why are you answering it, and what does that mean? So, all these other speakers have to have a balance between refutation and presenting new arguments. You'll notice that when they presented new arguments, they didn't present a lot of new arguments. You don't really persuade people by saying, well, here are 8 more reasons why our side of the motion is good. Because they're not going to be very well developed, they're going to be fragmentary, they're going to be little blipoids, right? And I mean, nanotechnology is interesting, but you don't need little tiny blipoid arguments. All right, this debate format, and I think one of the great advantages of it is that it privileges argument development. You have to really develop an argument, explain how it works logically, give examples of that, some manifestations of that in the real world, and then talk about why that is important. Right? So argument development is something, it's easy to think of 4 random reasons why this would be maybe not a good policy, but you need to come up with a couple that are well developed and are reasonable and make sense. And that's what you need to do. Okay? So I just wanted to talk about that going on. So we had the first half of the debate. Now in the second half of the debate, we encounter something really interesting about this format. Because at the end of the debate, the judges are going to decide to rank the teams 1, 2, 3, 4. So, although the 2 teams here on this side are supposedly on the same side, they are actually competing against each other. But you don't do that by saying, well, Ben was wrong when he said, and you don't go attacking people on your side. It's very, very much like the political process. If you attack the people on your side, the people of your party, the people who are working with you, you think there's much of a political future for you? Maybe in the Republican Party, but probably not. Right? So how do you set yourself apart from the other team? Right? You do that by coming up with a new idea. And you need to have a winner. It needs to be a really good idea. A sparkling, glowing idea that will make the judge go, wow, that's smart. Right? This is what you want. You want that moment where the judge listens to you and goes, yeah, smart. This is what you want. And that's not a debate trick. That's a life trick. Anytime you get people to go, you say something and they go, oh, smart. That's what you want. They're ready to sign the contract. They're going to close the deal. They're going to sign the treaty. Right? These are the things that you want to achieve. So it's not just repeating when you're at the second table. Now, that's not, you don't always have to say something brand new. Right? An example in Jessica's speech, she thought there was a lot more that Ben could have talked about, in more detail to make it bigger. So she advanced the debate, not by having a brand new argument, she had one of those too, but also by expanding on something that a previous speaker had said. Don't let people tell you that the second team must introduce a brand new idea. This is mindlessness. The second team's obligation is to advance the debate. Thank you, Mary Nugent. To advance, she had to argue with me for quite a while, and now I'm persuaded. They have to advance the debate. So you can advance the debate either coming up with a brand new idea that is glowing and smart, or expanding on something that could have been handled better by the team in front of you. Now, sometimes you have a little problem. Let's say that you're the second government team, and the first government team was terrible, awful, and said bad stuff, right? You don't want to stand up and go, well, that was disgraceful and we don't want to have anything to do with it. No, I think that there are keywords for this, and it's a politeness keyword, and in Asian society, we understand, you understand politeness often better than we do in the West. So you might say something like, well, our first government team had a very interesting list of ideas. But now we would like to lead the debate in a new direction. And as a judge, I'm going, thank goodness. Right? And so, you know, you're sort of, what we say, damning through faint praise. They didn't have good arguments, they had interesting arguments. Right? So sometimes you have to do that. And you want to do it nicely, but you're sort of in a coded way telling the judge, yep, you know they were stupid, we know they're stupid, us, we're not stupid, and we're polite. Right? And now we're going to advance the debate in a new direction. So this is what happened in these speeches. Now, also the second team is looking to fill in the blanks, right? What is missing on our side? And you'll notice that for the second opposition team, they, you know, it was not clear how it was a problem, but how are we really going to solve the problem if we don't adopt this cash subsidy issue? Well, theirs was, we don't need to because other things are doing it. We have technological advancement, we have existing education, and there are other ways we could do it through infrastructure reform, etc. And so they said, yeah, we don't have an answer, because often if the government says there's a problem and we're going to solve it, not 100%, but, you know, something, then that's usually a good reason to vote for them. They do something good and it works. It doesn't work all the time, but it works. And quite often they will challenge the opposition team. Yeah, we have a way to deal with this problem. What's your way of dealing with this problem? Nothing. Right? And so, you know, if you sense that's happening, then you need to come up with an argument as to, well, what's your answer to this problem? Now, that's just one of the things that can come up, but the smart second team sees where the holes are in front of them and how they might end. There will always be holes. You can never give a complete analysis of anything in a 7-minute speech. You can try to have some argument development, but you can never have a complete analysis of anything. So you need to find what are the most important things that haven't been said and say them. Final thing I want to talk about is the result of the last two speeches, which are the whip speeches. Very interesting, where this term comes from. I love to research where terms like this come from. In the Roman Senate, especially when it wasn't that important, the Roman senators would not show up or fall asleep or get drunk or something, and not. So when it was time for a vote, they had these guys called lictors, and they had bundles of sticks. And they would walk around, and if you weren't going, there was going to be a vote and you weren't there, the lictor could hit you with it and get you back into vote. Now, in parliamentary democracies where we're taking shape in the West, this whip is like, look, it's going to be a close vote. We need to make sure that all our people are there to vote. Right? And so the job of the whip, even as it is now, in many parliaments and in the United States Congress, to make sure that everybody is there to vote on the bill when it comes up so that it can pass. Right? And so that's the role of the whip. There's actually no more whipping being done. No, I'm going to let that one go. Okay? So there's no more whipping being done, formally at least. But what's happening, and we still call them whip speeches, is that you are trying to crystallize in the mind of the judge what's really important here and why should you vote for our side. Often this may involve a break in structure. First speaker has 2 arguments, second speaker has 2 arguments, third speaker has another argument. You wouldn't just stand up in the whip speech and go, well, first we said this, and then we said this, and then we said this, and then we said this, and now I've repeated all the things you've already heard. Aren't you bored? Right? No, you want to package it in a new way and try to find the most probing and compelling ideas for your side of the motion. Now remember, If you're a second team, you're still competing against the first team. So often, one of the most probing and important ideas was your partner's new argument. But you can't say, that, well, the only thing that's really important is my partner's new argument. But that's too self-serving, right? You don't want to appear ungracious. This will pay off in the long run. Yes, you want to say that your partner's argument was incredibly important, but you don't want to say that's the only thing that's important. And I, as a judge, if your whip speech ignores some really good stuff that the first team did, then, I will punish you for that, because you're not giving a balanced picture of the debate. So, in the whip speech, you're supposed to summarize the debate around a couple of major points, and I'd like to think of it as if the judge was explaining after the debate which side won, the more it sounds like your whip speech, the better your whip speech was. Right? It's sort of a biased elaboration of why you think you won. Okay? So these are this is an example of the kind of stuff we're going to do this week. I think that not all of your debates will be like this. Some will be worse, some will be better. But each of you will have a chance to develop your skills. Now, this is not like school. Please don't think of this academy as school, because it's not like school. You're not going to get graded. You'll be grading yourself. How much did I improve? How did I develop? And the way I like to think about debate is it's not how high they rise, but how far they come from where they were. So if you're making a lot of progress, then that's important. Why? Because most of the people you're going to compete against in the 21st century can't give a speech, can't answer arguments, can't answer tough questions with 3 seconds to think about it, and you'll be able to. Right? And so that will help to set you apart. We don't learn this by listening to a lecture, like the one I'm giving now. Right? You learn it by doing it. And so that's why all our days will be composed pretty much the same. We'll have a short lecture, we'll have exercises where you actively implement the ideas from the lecture. About refutation, about building arguments, about points of information, where you do it. You actually do it. And then we're going to have debates. Over and over and over again. Debates. All on different motions. Because it's a big world. It's a big future. And there are a lot of ideas out there. And we have to be prepared for all of them. Okay? So, now I believe I've wasted all of our, constructively used all of our time. And so we're going to, let's talk about where are we going, where will we meet next? They're going to do that? All right, let's hand it over to our master and mistress of ceremonies. Thank you. Get a partner.
I hope you all get excited now. We're pretty much close to the end of this morning, but before that, I would like to introduce to you the members of the organizing team, because without them, this event could not exist. And I introduced them to you because I want you to know which people to contact when you need help. So please come up on the stage. So these are the members